You've been told that becoming your authentic self is a long, difficult journey of self-discovery that takes years of therapy, countless workshops, and maybe a spiritual awakening or two. But what if I told you that quantum reality shifting into who you're meant to be is actually stunningly simple, and the only reason you think it's complicated is because there's an entire industry built on keeping you searching instead of finding? Here's what's really happening. Every single day you're broadcasting a frequency into the quantum field based on who you think you're supposed to be. Your family's expectations, society's programming, your boss's demands, social media's pressure to perform a certain version of yourself. You're literally collapsing wave functions of possibility into a reality that isn't even yours. You're manifesting someone else's vision of your life, and then wondering why nothing feels right, why success feels empty, why even your victories feel hollow. The billionaires and consciousness leaders who figured this out don't want you to know how simple it really is. Because if you knew that becoming unstoppable is just a matter of quantum coherence between who you are and who you're being, their entire empire of courses and certifications would crumble overnight. They need you to believe it's complex, that you need their systems, their methods, their approval to access your own power. But here's the quantum truth they don't want you to understand. Reality isn't fixed. It's a field of infinite possibilities that responds to the frequency of your authentic being, not your performed identity. When you stop trying to be who they want you to be and start broadcasting from your core frequency, the quantum field has no choice but to reorganize itself around that truth. It's not manifestation, it's physics. Think about the moments in your life when you felt truly unstoppable. I'm willing to bet it wasn't when you were following someone else's blueprint or trying to fit into their definition of success. It was when you forgot about what you were supposed to do and just did what felt right, when you stopped performing and started being. In those moments, you weren't trying to shift reality. You were reality shifting around your authentic frequency. The quantum field doesn't respond to who you pretend to be. It responds to the vibrational signature of who you actually are. And here's the thing that'll blow your mind. You already know who that is. You've always known. The only reason you can't access it consistently is because you've been trained to override your internal guidance system with external validation. You've been taught to trust everyone's opinion about who you should be except your own. Let me share something that completely changed how I understand this process. In quantum mechanics, there's something called the observer effect. The act of observation literally determines what becomes real. But here's what most people miss. You're not just observing reality, you're observing yourself. And whoever you consistently observe yourself to be becomes the frequency you broadcast into the field. When you observe yourself through other people's eyes, trying to be who they want you to be, you're literally collapsing your infinite potential into their limited vision of you. You become a quantum prisoner of their expectations. But when you start observing yourself from your own center, from your authentic core, something magical happens. The field starts responding to your frequency instead of theirs. This is why some people seem effortlessly unstoppable, while others struggle despite having all the right strategies and tools. The unstoppable ones aren't following a method, they're following their frequency. They're not trying to become someone, they're allowing themselves to be someone. There's a massive difference, and it's the difference between forcing and flowing, between pushing and pulling, between exhaustion and exhilaration. Here's where the science gets really fascinating. Your heart generates an electromagnetic field that's 60 times greater in amplitude than your brain, and can be detected several feet away from your body. When you're being authentic, when you're aligned with who you really are, your heart and brain enter a state of coherence. This coherence creates a measurable change in the electromagnetic field around you, literally broadcasting a different frequency into the quantum field. But when you're trying to be who others want you to be, when you're performing instead of being, your heart and brain fall out of coherence. The field becomes chaotic, conflicted. You're essentially broadcasting static instead of a clear signal. The quantum field receives mixed messages and responds with mixed results. This is why trying so hard often backfires. Why the more you chase success, the more it seems to elude you. The people who figured this out, the ones who seem to have reality bending around them effortlessly, they're not doing more, they're doing less. They're not adding strategies, they're subtracting pretense, they're not becoming someone new, they're uncovering who they've always been underneath all the conditioning and programming. I want you to think about a time when someone told you to be more realistic about your dreams. Remember that feeling? That's the feeling of your authentic frequency being dampened by someone else's limited perception of what's possible. Now think about a time when someone saw your potential and reflected it back to you. Different feeling, right? Same you, different observer, different reality. This is the key that unlocks everything. You get to choose which observer you listen to. You get to choose which frequency you broadcast from. And when you choose your own authentic frequency over everyone else's opinions about who you should be, reality has no choice but to reorganize itself around that truth. But here's what makes this challenging. You've been conditioned to believe that your authentic self isn't good enough, isn't valuable enough, isn't worthy of the reality you desire. You've been taught that you need to improve, fix, or change yourself to deserve what you want. This is the biggest lie ever sold, and it's keeping you trapped in a cycle of endless becoming instead of simply being. The quantum field doesn't care about your resume, your achievements, or your credentials. It responds to frequency, to the vibrational signature of your being. And your authentic frequency, the one you were born with before the world told you who to be, that frequency is already worthy of everything you desire. You don't need to earn the right to be yourself. You don't need permission to broadcast your truth. Let me tell you what really happens when you stop trying to be who they want you to be and start being who you are. First, there's usually some resistance, both internal and external. The people around you might not recognize this version of you. They might try to pull you back into the old patterns, the old roles, the old limitations. This isn't because they don't love you. It's because your authentic frequency is disrupting the quantum field they're comfortable with. Your own mind might resist too. It's been programmed to seek approval, to avoid rejection, to play it safe. When you start broadcasting authentically, you're essentially reprogramming not just your own quantum field, but the field of everyone around you. This can feel scary at first because you're stepping into unknown territory, into possibilities that haven't been approved by the committee of other people's opinions. But here's what happens when you push through that initial resistance. The field starts responding to your authentic frequency with opportunities, synchronicities, and connections that align with who you really are instead of who you've been pretending to be. Doors open that you didn't even know existed. People appear who recognize and value your authentic gifts. Resources flow toward you because you're finally broadcasting a clear, coherent signal instead of static. This is when you become truly unstoppable, not because you've conquered the world, but because you've stopped fighting yourself. When your internal frequency matches your external expression, when who you are aligns with who you're being, you enter a state of quantum coherence that makes manifestation effortless. You're not trying to create a reality that fits your performance. You're allowing reality to organize around your truth. The most successful people I know, the ones who seem to have life figured out, they all share one common trait. They stopped trying to be impressive and started being authentic. They stopped broadcasting what they thought people wanted to hear and started expressing what was true for them. They stopped performing success and started embodying it from their core frequency. This doesn't mean they don't face challenges or obstacles. It means they face them as themselves instead of as who they think they should be. There's a power in that authenticity that no strategy or technique can replicate. When you're being real, when you're broadcasting from your authentic frequency, you have access to resources and solutions that aren't available when you're performing. Think about the difference between trying to convince someone you're confident and actually feeling confident. The energy is completely different, isn't it? People can sense the difference even if they can't articulate it. The quantum field can sense it too. When you're trying to be confident, you're broadcasting insecurity with a confidence mask. When you're actually confident, you're broadcasting coherent frequency that the field responds to with matching experiences. This is why affirmations often don't work the way people expect them to. If you're affirming confidence while feeling insecure, you're sending mixed signals into the field. The field responds to your actual frequency, not your words. But when you align with your authentic self, when you stop trying to be someone else's version of confident and start being your own version of real, the field responds to that coherence with experiences that match your authentic frequency. Here's something that might surprise you. Your authentic self is probably different from what you think it is. You've been performing for so long, adapting to others' expectations for so long, that you might have lost touch with your actual frequency. This is normal and it's reversible. Your authentic self isn't something you need to create. It's something you need to uncover, to remember, to allow. The process of becoming unstoppable isn't about adding more to who you are. It's about subtracting everything that isn't you. It's about peeling away the layers of conditioning, expectation, and programming to reveal the frequency you were broadcasting before the world told you it wasn't enough. That frequency, that authentic core, that's your access point to quantum reality shifting. When you operate from this authentic frequency, when you stop being who they want you to be and start being who you are, something shifts in the quantum field around you. Opportunities align, resources appear, connections form, synchronicities multiply. Not because you're manipulating reality, but because you're finally broadcasting a clear, coherent signal that the field can respond to effectively. This is what I mean by quantum reality shift. You're not changing the rules of reality, you're changing your relationship with reality. Instead of trying to force reality to accommodate your performance, you're allowing reality to organize around your authentic frequency. Instead of pushing against the field, you're flowing with it. Instead of fighting for your place in the world, you're claiming the space that's already yours. The people who seem effortlessly unstoppable, they're not superhuman. They're not more talented or more deserving than you. They've just figured out how to broadcast their authentic frequency consistently instead of performing someone else's version of success. They've learned to trust their internal guidance system more than external validation. They've discovered that being real is more powerful than being perfect. So here's what I want you to consider. What if everything you think you need to become, you already are? What if everything you think you need to fix about yourself is actually just conditioning that's covering up your authentic power? What if the reason you feel stuck isn't because you're not good enough, but because you're not being yourself enough? The quantum field is waiting for your authentic signal. It's been waiting your whole life. Every time you choose performance over authenticity, you're essentially telling the field to organize around someone else's vision of your life. But when you choose to broadcast from your core frequency, when you stop being who they want you to be and start being who you are, the field has no choice but to respond with experiences that match that authenticity. This is where most people get it backwards. They think they need to become unstoppable to be authentic, but it's actually the reverse. You need to be authentic to become unstoppable. Authenticity is the frequency, unstoppable is the result. When you stop trying to prove you're worthy and start knowing you're worthy, when you stop performing value and start embodying it, when you stop broadcasting their vision of you and start expressing your vision of you, that's when reality shifts. Are you starting to feel the difference between trying to become someone and allowing yourself to be someone? Between performing your worth and knowing your worth? Between broadcasting static and transmitting a clear signal? The reason this feels so revolutionary when you first experience it is because you've been living in quantum dissonance for so long that coherence feels like magic. But it's not magic. It's physics. When your internal frequency finally matches your external expression, when you stop fragmenting your energy between who you are and who you think you should be, you create what quantum physicists call superposition collapse in your favor. Let me explain what I mean by that. In quantum mechanics, particles exist in multiple states simultaneously until they're observed. Your potential exists the same way. Right now, there are infinite versions of you existing in the quantum field. The version who's wildly successful, the version who's creatively fulfilled, the version who's deeply loved, the version who's financially free. All of these versions are real. They're just existing in potential until something collapses them into your experience reality. Here's the part that'll change everything for you. The observer that collapses these potentials isn't some external force, it's you. But not the performing you, not the people-pleasing you, not the trying to be acceptable you. It's the authentic you, the core frequency you, the version of you that knows its own worth without needing external validation to prove it. When you're being who others want you to be, you're observing yourself through their lens and you collapse potentials that match their limited vision of you. But when you observe yourself from your authentic core, when you see yourself the way your highest self sees you, you collapse potentials that match your true frequency. This is why some people seem to live charmed lives, while others struggle despite working twice as hard. The struggling ones are collapsing potentials from a frequency of lack, limitation, and performance anxiety. The effortless ones are collapsing potentials from a frequency of authenticity, worthiness, and natural confidence. Same quantum field, different observer, completely different results. I want you to think about someone you know who seems naturally unstoppable, not the ones who are grinding and forcing their way to success, but the ones who seem to flow into opportunities, who attract what they need, who make difficult things look easy. Watch them closely and you'll notice something interesting. They're not trying to impress anyone. They're not performing a version of success, they're expressing their authentic nature, and success is just a natural byproduct. This is what I call quantum authenticity, And it's the most powerful force in the universe because it aligns you with the fundamental creative principle of reality itself. The universe is constantly creating, constantly expanding, constantly expressing new possibilities. When you align with your authentic frequency, you align with this creative force. When you perform someone else's version of you, you're swimming against the current of creation itself. Here's something that might challenge everything you've been taught about success. The most powerful thing you can do isn't to develop new skills, create better strategies, or work harder. It's to stop betraying yourself. Every time you choose what others want over what you know is right for you, every time you suppress your authentic response to fit in, every time you dim your natural brightness to make others comfortable, you're creating quantum interference in your own field. Think of it like a radio signal. When you're broadcasting authentically, you're sending a clear, strong signal that the quantum field can easily respond to. But when you're trying to be who others want you to be, it's like having multiple radio stations broadcasting on the same frequency. The signal becomes garbled, unclear, weak. The field receives mixed messages and responds with mixed results. This is why people who are desperately trying to manifest often get frustrated results. They're broadcasting desperation while trying to visualize abundance. They're performing confidence while feeling insecure. They're affirming worthiness while believing they're not enough. The field responds to the authentic frequency, not the performed one, so they keep attracting experiences that match their actual vibration rather than their intended one. But when you start broadcasting from your authentic core, when you stop performing worthiness and start embodying it, when you stop trying to convince the field you deserve good things and start knowing you deserve them, everything changes. The field responds to coherent signals with coherent results. Clarity attracts clarity. Authenticity attracts authentic opportunities. Confidence attracts confident experiences. Let me share something that completely shifted my understanding of this process. I used to think that confidence was something you developed through achievements, through proving yourself, through accumulating evidence of your worth. But I discovered that real confidence, the kind that makes you unstoppable, isn't based on what you've done. It's based on who you are. It's not earned. It's remembered. You were born confident. You were born knowing your worth. You were born broadcasting your authentic frequency without apology or hesitation. Watch a healthy child and you'll see this natural confidence in action. They don't question whether they deserve love, attention, or care. They don't perform to earn their place in the family. They simply exist authentically and expect the world to respond accordingly. And it does. Somewhere along the way, you learned that your authentic self wasn't acceptable, wasn't enough, wasn't worthy of love and success without modification. You learned to perform, to adapt, to suppress parts of yourself to gain approval. This wasn't your fault. It was survival. But what served you then is sabotaging you now. The version of you that learned to perform for approval is trying to manifest from a frequency of unworthiness. It's trying to attract abundance while believing it doesn't deserve it. It's trying to create success while feeling like an imposter. It's trying to find love while believing it's not lovable as it is. This creates what I call quantum contradiction, where your desire and your identity are broadcasting opposite frequencies. Here's what happens when you resolve this contradiction. When you stop performing and start being. First, there's usually a period of discomfort as your system recalibrates. People around you might not recognize this version of you. They might resist your authenticity because it challenges the role you've been playing in their reality. Some relationships might shift or end. This isn't a sign you're doing something wrong. It's a sign you're doing something real. Your own mind might resist too. It's been programmed to seek safety through approval, and authenticity can feel dangerous when you're used to performing. The ego mind will try to convince you that you need to go back to being who others want you to be, that it's safer, more practical, more realistic. This is where most people give up and go back to their old patterns. But if you push through this recalibration period, if you keep choosing authenticity over approval, something remarkable happens. The quantum field around you begins to reorganize. The people who couldn't appreciate your authentic self naturally drift away, making space for those who can. Opportunities that align with your true nature start appearing. Resources flow toward you because you're finally broadcasting a clear, coherent signal. This is when you discover what it really means to be unstoppable. It's not about overpowering obstacles or forcing your way through resistance. It's about being so aligned with your authentic frequency that obstacles naturally dissolve and resistance transforms into flow. When you're being real, when you're expressing your truth, when you're honoring your authentic nature, You're working with the fundamental creative force of the universe instead of against it. The people who seem effortlessly successful, who appear to have reality bending around them, they're not using secret techniques or hidden knowledge. They're simply broadcasting their authentic frequency consistently. They've learned to trust their internal guidance more than external opinions. They've discovered that being themselves is more powerful than being perfect. Here's something that might surprise you about this process. Your authentic self isn't necessarily the person you think you should be, or even the person you want to be. It's the person you are when nobody's watching, when you're not trying to impress anyone, when you forget to perform. It's the frequency you broadcast when you're completely relaxed, completely natural, completely real. Most people never discover this authentic self because they're too busy trying to become someone else. They're so focused on improving, fixing, and changing themselves that they never stop to appreciate who they already are. They're so busy becoming that they forget to be. This is like having a treasure chest in your basement while you're out digging holes looking for gold. Your authentic frequency, the real you underneath all the conditioning and programming, that frequency is already perfectly calibrated to attract everything you truly desire. Not what you think you should desire, not what others want you to desire, but what your soul actually longs for. When you align with this frequency, when you stop being who they want you to be and start being who you are, manifestation becomes effortless because you're no longer trying to attract things that don't match your true nature. This is why some people can manifest money easily while others struggle, despite using the same techniques. The ones who flow with abundance are broadcasting from a frequency that's naturally aligned with prosperity. They're not trying to convince themselves they deserve money, they know they do. They're not performing wealth consciousness. They're embodying it. Their authentic frequency includes prosperity as a natural expression of their being. The ones who struggle are trying to manifest from a frequency that doesn't include abundance as natural. They're performing prosperity while feeling poor. They're affirming wealth while believing they don't deserve it. They're visualizing success while identifying as someone who struggles. The field responds to their authentic frequency, not their performed one, so they keep attracting experiences that match their actual vibration. But here's the beautiful thing about quantum reality shifting. You don't have to wait years to change your frequency. You don't need therapy, workshops, or spiritual awakenings to access your authentic self. You just need to stop performing and start being. You need to stop broadcasting what you think others want to receive and start transmitting what's actually true for you. This might mean saying no to things that don't align with your nature, even if others expect you to say yes. It might mean expressing opinions that aren't popular, pursuing dreams that others don't understand, making choices that prioritize your authenticity over their approval. It might mean disappointing people who've grown comfortable with your performance. Here's what I want you to understand about disappointment. When you disappoint someone by being authentic, you're not actually disappointing them. You're revealing that their connection was to your performance, not to you. The people who truly value you will celebrate your authenticity, even when it's inconvenient for them. The ones who only valued your performance will resist your realness because it threatens their illusion of control over you. This distinction is crucial because one of the biggest fears people have about being authentic is that they'll lose love, connection, and support. But you can't lose something you never actually had. If someone's love was conditional on you being who they wanted you to be, that wasn't love for you. That was love for their projection of you. Real love celebrates authenticity, even when it's challenging. When you start broadcasting your authentic frequency, when you stop being who they want you to be and start being who you are, you'll discover something amazing. The right people, the ones who are meant to be in your reality, they'll recognize your frequency immediately. They'll be drawn to your authenticity like a magnet. Connections will form that are based on who you actually are, rather than who you've been pretending to be. This is when relationships become effortless instead of exhausting. When you're being authentic, you don't have to work to maintain connections because they're based on truth rather than performance. You don't have to remember what version of yourself you were being with different people because you're being the same real you everywhere. You don't have to manage your image because your image is just your authentic expression. The same principle applies to success and abundance. When you're broadcasting authentically, when your external expression matches your internal frequency, opportunities appear that are perfectly aligned with your nature. You don't have to force doors open because the right doors recognize your frequency and open naturally. You don't have to convince people of your value because your authentic presence communicates it automatically. This is what I mean by becoming unstoppable. It's not about developing superhuman willpower or learning to overcome any obstacle. It's about aligning so completely with your authentic frequency that obstacles naturally dissolve and resistance transforms into flow. When you're being real, when you're expressing truth, when you're honoring your nature, you're swimming with the current of creation instead of against it. But here's where most people get stuck. They want to be authentic, but they want to control how others respond to their authenticity. They want to be real, but they want everyone to approve of their realness. They want to express their truth, but they want their truth to be universally accepted. This is still performance, just a more subtle version. True authenticity means being yourself regardless of how others respond. It means broadcasting your frequency whether others appreciate it or not. It means expressing your truth even when it's inconvenient, unpopular, or misunderstood. This doesn't mean being reckless or insensitive. It means being real, while allowing others to be real too. When you reach this level of authentic expression, when you're truly being yourself without apology or modification, something magical happens in the quantum field around you. Reality begins to organize itself around your frequency. The people, opportunities, and experiences that match your authentic nature start appearing while the ones that don't naturally fade away. This is quantum reality shifting in action. You're not trying to force reality to accommodate your performance. You're allowing reality to align with your truth. You're not pushing against the field. You're flowing with it. You're not fighting for your place in the world. You're claiming the space that's already yours by virtue of your authentic existence. Are you beginning to sense the difference between trying to become unstoppable and simply being unstoppable? Between performing power and embodying it? Between broadcasting what you think the world wants to hear and transmitting what's actually true for you? The moment you truly grasp this, when you feel it in your bones rather than just understanding it intellectually, you'll realize that every struggle you've ever had with manifestation, every time you felt stuck or blocked, every period where you worked hard but got nowhere, it all traces back to one fundamental misalignment. You were trying to create a reality that matched your performance instead of allowing reality to organize around your truth. Think about the last time you felt completely effortless in achieving something. I'm not talking about things that came easy because they didn't matter to you. I'm talking about meaningful results that flowed to you without strain or struggle. If you examine those moments carefully, you'll discover something fascinating. You weren't trying to be someone else when those results appeared. You weren't performing a version of success. You were simply being yourself in a way that naturally attracted what you desired. This is the secret that the personal development industry doesn't want you to discover. They need you to believe that you're broken, that you need fixing, that you require their methods and systems to access your own power. But the truth is, you're not broken. You've just been broadcasting from the wrong frequency. You've been trying to manifest from your performed self instead of your authentic self. Your performed self is the version of you that's been shaped by other people's expectations, society's programming, family conditioning, and cultural beliefs about who you should be to deserve success, love, and abundance. This performed self is always trying to prove its worth, always working to earn its place, always seeking external validation to feel valuable. It's exhausting because it's not real, and maintaining an illusion requires constant energy. Your authentic self, on the other hand, doesn't need to prove anything because it knows its inherent worth. It doesn't need to earn love because it understands that love is its natural state. It doesn't need to force abundance because it recognizes abundance as its birthright. This authentic self isn't something you need to create or develop. It's something you need to remember and allow. Here's what happens when you start operating from your authentic self instead of your performed self. First, you stop seeking permission to be who you are. You stop waiting for others to approve of your dreams, validate your worth, or give you the green light to pursue what matters to you. You realize that the only permission you need is your own, and you've always had that. This shift alone changes everything because when you stop seeking external permission, you stop broadcasting the frequency of unworthiness that was attracting experiences of rejection, limitation, and struggle. Instead, you start broadcasting the frequency of inherent worth, which attracts experiences of acceptance, expansion, and flow. Second, you stop trying to convince others of your value and start embodying it naturally. There's a massive difference between trying to prove you're confident and simply being confident. When you're trying to prove it, you're actually broadcasting insecurity with a confidence mask. When you're simply being confident, you're transmitting authentic power that others can feel even if they can't articulate it. The quantum field responds to your authentic transmission, not your performed presentation. This is why some people can walk into a room and immediately command respect and attention without saying a word, while others can talk for hours about their achievements and still feel invisible. It's not about what you do, it's about what you broadcast from your core frequency. Third, you stop fighting against your natural inclinations and start honoring them as guidance. Your authentic desires, the ones that arise from your core rather than from social conditioning, these aren't random wants that you need to justify or suppress. They're frequency indicators, showing you what your authentic self is naturally aligned to manifest. When you honor these authentic desires instead of dismissing them as unrealistic or selfish, when you start moving toward what genuinely excites you rather than what you think you should want, you align with the creative force of the universe itself. This is when synchronicities multiply, when the right people appear at the right time, when resources flow toward you seemingly out of nowhere. Most people never experience this level of flow because they've been trained to distrust their authentic desires. They've been taught that what they naturally want is probably wrong, selfish, or unrealistic. So they suppress their authentic impulses and try to want what they think they should want based on other people's definitions of success and fulfillment. But here's the quantum truth that changes everything. Your authentic desires are the universe's way of calling you toward your highest expression. They're not obstacles to overcome, they're guidance to follow. When you start trusting these authentic impulses instead of overriding them with logical analysis or social approval, you tap into a level of creative power that most people never access. This doesn't mean being reckless or impulsive. It means learning to distinguish between authentic desires that arise from your core frequency and reactive wants that come from ego, fear, or conditioning. Authentic desires feel expansive, energizing, and aligned even when they're challenging. Reactive wants feel desperate, draining, and misaligned even when they seem logical. When you start following your authentic desires, when you stop being who they want you to be and start being who you are, you'll notice something remarkable happening in your external reality. Opportunities begin appearing that you couldn't have planned or predicted. People enter your life who support your authentic expression rather than trying to modify it. Resources become available that match your true needs rather than your performed wants. This is quantum coherence in action. When your internal frequency matches your external expression, when who you are aligns with who you're being, you create a coherent signal that the field can respond to clearly and powerfully. Instead of broadcasting static, you're transmitting a pure tone that resonates through the quantum field and attracts matching frequencies. Here's something that might challenge your current understanding of goal setting and manifestation. The most powerful goals aren't the ones you set with your logical mind based on what you think you should achieve. They're the ones that arise naturally from your authentic frequency, the ones that feel like inevitable expressions of who you are, rather than achievements you need to earn. When you're operating from your authentic self, goals don't feel like distant destinations you need to struggle toward. They feel like natural unfolding, like flowers blooming or rivers flowing toward the ocean. There's an inevitability to them because they're aligned with your core frequency rather than imposed by your conditioned mind. This is why some people seem to manifest their desires effortlessly, while others work incredibly hard and still struggle to create what they want. The effortless ones aren't using better techniques or secret methods. They're broadcasting from their authentic frequency, so their goals are natural expressions of who they are. The struggling ones are trying to achieve goals that don't match their authentic nature, so they're constantly swimming against their own current. Let me give you a practical example of how this works. Imagine someone whose authentic nature is creative, intuitive, and free-flowing, but who's been conditioned to believe that success means climbing the corporate ladder, accumulating status symbols, and following traditional paths to achievement. This person might set goals around getting promoted, buying expensive things, or impressing others with conventional markers of success. But because these goals don't align with their authentic frequency, achieving them requires constant effort, struggle, and energy expenditure. Even if they succeed, the success feels hollow because it's not a true expression of who they are. They're essentially trying to force their square peg authentic self into the round hole of someone else's definition of success. Now imagine the same person discovers their authentic frequency and starts setting goals that align with their creative, intuitive, free-flowing nature. Maybe they decide to start an artistic project, launch a creative business, or find ways to express their natural gifts. Suddenly, the same amount of energy that was barely moving them forward in the misaligned direction now propels them rapidly toward their authentic goals. This isn't because the goals are easier, it's because they're aligned. When you're moving in the direction of your authentic frequency, you're working with the creative force of the universe instead of against it. Doors open, people help, resources appear, synchronicities multiply, not because you're manipulating reality, but because you're finally broadcasting a clear, coherent signal that the field can respond to effectively. This is what I mean by becoming unstoppable. You're not developing the power to overcome any obstacle. You're aligning so completely with your authentic frequency that obstacles naturally dissolve. You're not forcing your way through resistance. You're flowing around it. You're not fighting reality. You're dancing with it. But here's the part that requires real courage. To access this level of flow, this quantum coherence, you have to be willing to disappoint people who've grown comfortable with your performance. You have to be willing to let go of achievements that don't align with your authentic nature, even if they look impressive to others. You have to be willing to pursue what's real for you, even when it doesn't make sense to anyone else. This is where most people get stuck. They want the flow and ease that comes with authenticity, but they're not willing to release the safety and approval that comes with performance. They want to be real, but they want their realness to be universally accepted. They want to follow their authentic path, but they want that path to be validated by everyone around them. True authenticity requires a level of self-trust that goes beyond external validation. It means being willing to be misunderstood, to be different, to pursue paths that others don't comprehend. It means trusting your internal guidance system more than the collective opinion of everyone around you. When you develop this level of self-trust, when you're willing to be authentic regardless of external response, something shifts in the quantum field around you. You stop attracting people and experiences that require you to perform, and you start attracting those that celebrate your authenticity. Your reality reorganizes itself around your truth instead of your pretense. This is quantum reality shifting at its most fundamental level. You're not trying to change the rules of reality. You're changing your relationship with reality. Instead of asking reality to validate your performance, you're allowing reality to respond to your authenticity. Instead of trying to prove you deserve good things, you're simply being someone who naturally attracts them. The people who seem to live charmed lives, who appear to have everything flow effortlessly toward them, they're not using secret techniques or hidden knowledge. They've simply learned to broadcast their authentic frequency consistently. They've discovered that being themselves is more powerful than being perfect, that authenticity is more attractive than performance, that truth is more magnetic than pretense. Are you starting to feel the shift happening in your own field as you consider these possibilities? Can you sense the difference between the energy of performing and the energy of being, between trying to become unstoppable and simply allowing your natural unstoppability to emerge? This is the moment where everything changes for you. Right now, as you're absorbing these words, you're at a quantum crossroads. You can go back to performing who others want you to be, broadcasting their frequency, collapsing potentials that match their limited vision of you. Or you can step into the most radical act of rebellion possible in this reality, being authentically, unapologetically, completely yourself. I want you to feel something right now. Close your eyes for a moment and imagine what it would feel like to never again apologize for who you are, to never again dim your light to make others comfortable, to never again suppress your authentic desires because they don't fit someone else's blueprint for your life. Feel that frequency. That's your natural state. That's who you are when you strip away all the conditioning, all the programming, all the performance. That frequency you're feeling right now, that's what makes you unstoppable. Not your achievements, not your credentials, not your ability to impress others. Your authentic frequency is your superpower, and it's been waiting your entire life for you to remember it, claim it, and broadcast it without apology. Here's what's going to happen when you leave this conversation and step back into your daily life. The world is going to test your commitment to authenticity. People are going to expect you to return to your old patterns, your old performance, your old ways of being who they want you to be. This is the universe giving you opportunities to choose your authentic frequency over external approval. Every time you choose authenticity over approval, every time you honor your truth instead of their expectations, every time you broadcast your real frequency instead of performing their preferred version of you, you're literally rewiring the quantum field around you. You're training reality to respond to who you actually are instead of who you've been pretending to be. The people who become truly unstoppable, the ones who seem to have reality bending around them effortlessly, They all went through this same choice point. They all had to decide whether being liked was more important than being real, whether approval was more valuable than authenticity, whether fitting in was more crucial than standing out as themselves. And here's what they discovered on the other side of that choice. The right people, the ones who are meant to be in your reality, they don't want your performance, they want your truth. The right opportunities, the ones aligned with your highest path, they don't respond to your pretense, they respond to your authenticity. The right experiences, the ones that fulfill your soul, they don't come from being who others want you to be. They come from being who you are. You have everything you need right now to become unstoppable. Not because you're going to develop new skills or learn new techniques, but because you're going to remember who you've always been underneath all the conditioning. You're going to stop betraying yourself and start broadcasting yourself. You're going to stop performing worthiness and start embodying it. The quantum field is waiting for your authentic signal. It's been waiting your entire life. Every moment you choose performance over authenticity, you're telling the field to organize around someone else's vision of your life. But every moment you choose to be real, to be yourself, to broadcast your truth, you're claiming your power as a conscious creator of your reality. This isn't just about personal transformation, though that's where it starts. When you stop being who they want you to be and become unstoppable as yourself, you give everyone around you permission to do the same. Your authenticity becomes a frequency of liberation that ripples out into the collective field. You become a living example of what's possible when someone chooses truth over performance, being over becoming, authenticity over approval. So here's my invitation to you, and it's the same invitation the universe has been extending to you since the moment you were born. Stop performing. Start being. Stop broadcasting their frequency. Start transmitting yours. Stop trying to become unstoppable. Start being unstoppable by being authentically, completely, unapologetically yourself. The quantum field is ready to respond to your authentic frequency. The question is, are you ready to broadcast it? Are you ready to stop being who they want you to be and start being who you are? Are you ready to discover what happens when you align completely with your truth and let reality organize itself around that authenticity? If this resonates with something deep inside you, if you can feel your authentic frequency stirring as you absorb these words, hit that subscribe button, because you're part of a community that's choosing authenticity over performance, truth over pretense, being over becoming. Drop one word in the comments that captures what you're feeling right now as you consider stepping into your authentic power. And remember, every time you choose to be real instead of perfect, you're not just transforming your own reality. You're contributing to a quantum shift in human consciousness itself. The most unstoppable thing you can be is yourself, and the world is waiting for your authentic frequency to emerge and transform everything it touches.